All right, so we're official now. So each class I'll record the session and then I will put it on the YouTube page. So if you miss something, if you miss class, that's the best place to go. If you want to hear something again, if you want to see how you looked that day. The YouTube page it's not private, but when I made it private last semester, people couldn't find it, even with the link. So I haven't really noticed a problem with people going on there and trolling and, looking to see what you look like or anything like that. If we notice a problem, we'll change it if we need to. But the first day of class, we typically just go over the syllabus. So that's what we'll do today and hopefully figure out where everything is. I tried in the other two classes to figure out how to share the actual Blackboard page. And I'm, still so good with technology that I couldn't figure it out. So we will start with the syllabus and we'll go through that. And then if you guys have questions, feel free to add them in the chat whenever you would like. Let's see. That's 1302. You guys are 1301. Dang it. All right. Almost there. Sorry. Okay, there it is. Oh, and I think we found a typo. Yeah. There's always a typo. I never want there to be. And I look at them like 100 times and I still see it. Is that the person who's supposed to be in this class? Yep, it is. Okay. Becky, did you guys share the link with people that aren't in the class? No. Okay. All right. So let me try to share your syllabus, not the other class. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Success. All right. So this is 1301. There's a morning class for you guys as well. So you may have some friends doing the morning thing. It's a much smaller group of people. I guess people don't like to get up at 8:30. I'm not going to say that I blame them. But we should go over the same stuff. So if you've got buddies there, you guys can study together, that sort of thing, work on things together. Okay. And office hours, when I go online, or honestly, we're supposed to have an office somewhere, and then you come in and ask us questions, but no one ever actually did that. And I don't really have an online time except those 30 minutes or 25 minutes before we start the class at 2:52. So if you ever want to ask stuff, you can come on early, and I can typically stay a little bit late as well with your group. And if you decide you want to just talk to me and you don't want anyone else around, you can just email me and I'll set up a little Zoom link and we'll do that. So anytime you want to do that, well, not anytime, I teach sometimes and I can't miss my class, but my classes are Tuesday and Thursday. So typically any Monday, Wednesday, or Friday that I'm not involved in some other like soccer or my other job. Yeah, sometimes you got to have two jobs, but it's the way life goes. So, but I usually can find time for you guys. And if I know ahead of time, I can. No one ever wants to have an office hour though, but because mostly people email their questions and I can answer them. So that's perfect. As long as you get an answer, that's all we need, right? Okay. So office hours by appointment. And of course, if you email, I will typically answer your question. If I don't, ask me again and then I'll answer. Never my goal to ignore you. All right. So here's all the stuff. That's the best place to email me, jsedna@austincc.edu. Course description, history, this is where my typo is, from 1607, which apparently is a date I like a lot because I put it in twice. Colonization to 1877. And some of the stuff we talk about will happen before 1607, and we may occasionally talk about stuff after 1877, but this is colonization to Reconstruction. Scans competencies, those are unusual skills you might need. I forget what scans stand for, I'm sorry. Should look it up. But mostly you're just going to read and write. I think the textbook is useful. The questions, the weekly questions come from the textbook. There are answers to them in the textbook. My lectures are based some on the textbook. So I think the textbook would be useful for you. So there you go. So the book, you'll need to read it and you'll need to be able to write stuff. Your quizzes are typically multiple choice. I reserve the right to give a short answer question, but since I'm grading your written stuff every week, I probably won't add written stuff to the quiz because, I just probably won't. Mostly I'm going to lecture to you, so sorry, or this is what you should expect in a history class maybe. But I'm hoping that the online resources also are helpful to you. And my goal here is for this to be pretty straightforward, for it not to be a mystery where you find the information, when stuff is due. In class, I will do my best to talk about the questions you need to answer, that sort of thing. So hopefully everything is pretty straightforward. I will record the lectures and put them on the YouTube channel, and there's the ID and the URL, which is essentially the ID with HTTPS in front of it and some stuff. Anytime you have any questions, if you feel free to email. Of course, you can drop them in the chat or say them out loud. Will be good. And be sure to look at the course documents page for stuff that could be helpful and the assignments page for assignments. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Course rationale, you're taking this class because you love US history. Absolutely. This one's not a dual credit because this is your 8th grade US history class, but as you're probably figuring out, because most of you guys are seniors and you've probably started looking, I know you've gone way beyond starting to look at colleges, but you may have started to look at degree plans, and you'll notice that whether you major in history or not, you are taking 2 classes in US history, 2 classes in some sort of world history, and 2 classes in government. So you're going to have 6 social studies classes, whether you like it or not. Isn't that amazing? It's beautiful. I know it is. Yeah, it's great. You're going like, no, I went to college to get away from this stuff. Too bad. I think you've got 2, like your English classes, I think one, well, the ones you probably already took are the writing class and then a literature class, but you usually have an English lit, an American lit, and then a writing class. It's been a long time. And my undergrad was an English degree, so I had a bunch of those classes. I'm legit though, my master's is in history, so don't worry. I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so 6 hours of US history because you love history or because you have to. So, but hopefully you'll learn some stuff that's useful. Your textbook, Give Me Liberty, Volume 1, 6th edition. If you can get the 5th edition from your high school book person or your AP US history teacher, that's close enough. The 6th edition, I haven't looked as carefully as I should have. I know. But I've looked more than you have. The biggest changes really are in the 2nd edition because they add more Obama and Trump. There was no Trump in the 5th edition because there was no, there was a Trump, he just wasn't president yet. You know what I'm saying? So, Trump as president, that's been amazing. Who would have thought? The book ISBN is a good way to look that up. And then you can buy the book, rent the book, borrow the book, maybe. I don't know if you can find the book online. So, and you guys can share places if you find it free online. You guys can share in the chat. Since it's really illegal to post the book online, I probably would not post. I would not post it because I have a different sort of liability than you would have none in a student chat. I would have some on my official web page, Blackboard page. All right, great. This is what everybody cares about. And history. I know you care about the history too. You essentially have 300 points in the class. Now, I know, I didn't put the book review in the point total. So there's really 320 points available. But those 20 points from the book review, they're not official points. They're kind of extra credit points. So once we add those in, this always causes problems because students go like, well, now we have 320 points total. So 270 is not 90% of that. It's like, yeah, I don't care. 270 points is an A with a book review. 240 points is a B. 210 is a C. Also, strange peculiarity, in college, you can get a grade of D and it will say officially that you're passing, but very few colleges will accept a D as part of your degree plan. So you probably don't want the D. And of course, it never works in dual credit, but we don't offer dual credit for this because I don't know why. I tried to explain to them it was a good idea, but I guess that's why I don't work there anymore. No, it's because I retired. All right, they didn't fire me. That's a rumor. If you guys are spreading that rumor, cut it out. I didn't get fired. I just got old. So this will always be the point total, even when online it changes to 320. So as long as it's 270, you're good. I'm trying to turn your stuff in on time. The one thing I did change, and you'll see that if you had this class last semester, is now I kind of want you to turn stuff in every week, and I'll explain to you why when we get there, okay? Try to turn your stuff in on time. I'm really as flexible as anyone's ever going to be because, you know, it's pandemic and life is strange and life is hard and stuff. So if you turn stuff in late, I'm still going to take it. I do put in here that I may assess a penalty. It doesn't mean that I will. If you turn in everything late, I will probably start assessing a penalty. But, you know, late is relative. You know, 5-10 minutes late, 30 minutes late, close enough, honestly, for me, close enough. 2 or 3 days late, that's late. And, you know, that I'm probably going to mention to you like, hey, maybe we could, you know, be a little tighter on the time. And of course, at the end of the semester, I don't want anything late because I just want to get the grades done on time. You do have to do a book review to get an A. It says that like 52 times here somewhere in the syllabus, and we'll go over the book review in a little bit. You do need to make sure the book's either on the book list or you ask me about the book ahead of time. I hardly ever say no, except if the book doesn't have anything to do with US history or Hitler. What the heck with people wanting to read a Hitler book? Plus, this is pre-Civil War. There's no Hitler. Don't do that. Okay. Course policies, you're sort of required to attend, but you know, we're online, so attendance is a little more flexible. Make sure if you're not in class that you watch the video. I think the discipline of coming to class is probably a really good idea. So don't miss class unless you have to. Plus, you also know, and I think this past year has taught us this in a new way, you never really know if there's going to be an emergency or you're going to get sick. It's been a weird couple of like 6 or 8 months, you know, whatever. So don't say like, I just need a mental health day today and take the day off because you may need something worse later on. You know what I'm saying? Plus, all you have to do really is log on and, you know, show your face or the top of your head or your name. Yeah. So this kind of attendance, not so bad. If you miss a whole lot of class, I can deduct points, but the truth is you're not gonna pass if you don't do your work. You know, that's just the truth. And if you're gonna be out for school, you know, we don't really have excused and unexcused absences. There's just absences, but again, I'm going to be flexible about it, of course. And if you're going to miss for school, just let me know. You know, send me an email. It says golf tournament or SAT, although I'm probably not going to believe you on SAT because you all are seniors, but I know you might still take it. I know it's possible, right? But don't just go to college. You're fine now. Don't take the SAT. All right. Be on time because our class is already a little shorter anyway. Several of you were early today. Come early if you want to ask questions or if you want to hear me say stupid stuff about politics and hairless cats. So that'd be good. Oh, okay. If these things aren't going well in this class and you want to withdraw, you do that. That's your thing. I think April 26th is the last withdrawal date. You probably don't, I mean, as long as you're passing, you probably want to stay. Check with the college that you plan to go to see how they accept credits, because sometimes they have a minimum GPA, pretty much as long as you got a C, they're happy with you. a lot of times they accept the credit and you have a transfer GPA, but it doesn't figure into your GPA at the new school. And all that stuff's maybe a little complicated. It's a little different than high school. So, check with where you're going. Your counselor might be able to help you, but they honestly might not. I mean, it's hard to say for sure. But a lot of times colleges have this information online. I think typically, as long as you're going to get a C or above, there's no reason to leave, because you probably just want the credit and the GPA probably doesn't matter. Now, if you're trying to transfer your credits to a really elite program, it might matter more. If you're trying to get, of course, at this point, you're probably already in to where you're going. Yes, probably. And you're just picking where you're going. So I think as long as you have a C, you're good. And you wouldn't be taking this class if you didn't want to transfer it somewhere. So I say don't drop it, but you do what you do. This rule of six thing, it doesn't apply to you while you're in high school, so don't worry about it. When you go to college, if you start dropping a bunch of classes, there are reasons that they put this rule into place. Mostly it was student aid fraud. Like people would apply for student loans and then they'd go buy a car. That's a really bad idea, by the way. Don't do that, okay? And then they drop the class because you had to have a certain number of classes to get the student aid, but then they would drop the class later and never actually finish college, but then buy a car with their student. It's a bad idea. It's why people get into crazy amounts of debt at age 22. So don't do it, but okay. But yeah, when you go to college, when next year, when you're not in high school, try not to drop classes. Because they'll eventually charge you higher tuition. That's why. This part I forgot to revise. You clearly are going to have your electronic devices on. Otherwise, we're not having class. So sorry. And I may revise that and just repost it, but that would be pretty much the only reason for the revision. And you guys can chat all you want in the chat box. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. So do what you need to do. Because you guys may be helping each other out, Although there was one class where everybody was talking about steampunk. It's like, I don't even know what that is, but I knew it wasn't history. So, but it would be hard for you to disrupt class because I can just mute you, So don't worry about any of that stuff. And camera on, camera off, it's completely up to you. It really is, because I know, like, I have some Zoom meetings with people who have way more money than me. Can you imagine people with more money than a teacher? I know, we make so much. And they've got like really fancy houses. They're out on their backyard and there's a swimming pool. And here I am with my cereal boxes. It's like, you know what? Maybe I don't want you to see my cereal boxes. Of course, then I can put up the little beach background or something. But that you might be babysitting your little brother and he's screaming in the background or something. So maybe I don't need to see that. Yeah. So, and maybe you don't want anybody. So camera on, camera off, completely up to you. I don't care. Just make sure when the camera's on that, you have clothes and stuff. And if you got like a naked sibling, tell them to stay out of the room. Say, hey, naked sibling, stay in your own room. Freedom of expression, you can talk about whatever, politics, be respectful. Let's try not to curse at each other too often. I so rarely cuss. I've never actually sworn at anybody. I don't think this will be the first semester, but so, I'm not gonna be rude to you. If you think I have been there, you can tell me. It's like, hey, Serna, that was kind of rude. And then I'll go like, oh, sorry. But be respectful and ask questions when you want to. And if your political opinion or your historical opinion is different than mine, I am so fine with that. I think it'd be really weird if we thought the same way, because I'm substantially older, had very different life experiences, lived, grew up in a different part of the country, had super old parents. So, because I'm super old, so my parents must be, my dad's about to be 80. That's so crazy. But yeah, we're not supposed to think the same way. So if you disagree with me, I completely expect that. Why would we think the same way? It would never offend me. And I would never go like, I'm going to count their grades down, because we're supposed to think differently. We're supposed to. Okay. Student privacy. Even today, I had a student's parent emailing. Yeah, I can't talk to your parents. Yeah. So if your parents are, if they email me, I go like, hey, sorry, you got to talk to your kid. The only person I can really talk to about your grades is your transition coordinator or counselor, because you signed something that said that I could talk to them generally about your grades. I can't talk to your parents, coaches, friends. I've had some classes where spouses will like, was my wife really in class today? It's like, hey, talk to your wife, not my business. I've had high school kids who sign up for the class in person, of course, and they wanted to date each other, but their parents didn't want them to date each other. So they signed up for the same class, but then went off and were dating. We'll just go with that. Like, hey, I'm out. I just teach history. So I'm not going to talk to your parents about your grades, your attendance, any of that kind of stuff. I would always, always advise you to be honest with the people who pay your rent. So that's my advice to you. Plus, they find out anyway, so just tell them. But if they contact me, I'll just tell them, look, it is illegal for me to talk to them about your grades. So that's what I'll tell them, and then they'll be mad. And I'll say, I understand, but I'm not losing a lawsuit over this. So yeah, as those of you who've had me before, I want to keep the Kia Soul. I don't want you guys getting that in a lawsuit. It's fancy. Kia Soul, best car ever. All right. If you have a 504 IEP, that's typically if you have ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, that sort of thing, some sort of learning difference. And you need extra time, you need me not to count off on spelling, you got to go through the Student Accessibility Services Office. And if you haven't done that before, ask your transition coordinator or your counselor to help you out with that. It's pretty simple. You just send the documentation to them. They send you a piece of paper that says what your accommodations are, and then you send that paper to me. So for that sort of thing in college, you take care of that more than counselors do. And that's something you got to get used to, because you got to do that next year. So, okay. And give me that stuff before, well, as soon as you can. Once you get it to me, I start applying the stuff, but don't cheat. Also, don't cheat, because then I got to give you an F, and that's extremely uncool. Most of what I see cheating on is the book review. If you don't want to do the book review, just don't do it. Okay, don't cheat. That's silly. Because then I have to give you an F for the whole class, and that's extremely uncool. Yeah. Yeah, if I think you're cheating on something smaller, I'll probably say like, hey, I think you're cheating. And this is why. Can you explain what happened? And I probably won't say, I think you're cheating. I might, depends on if what day you catch me on. But I will probably say, I noticed this online, and send you a URL, and I'll say, it looks remarkably similar to your answer. Can you explain what happened? And then, you'll explain what happened. And if it's not a weekly question, I'll probably say like, hey, let's not do that again. Because it's 10 points, I don't want to ruin your life over 10 points. But if I see it more than once, yeah, it's a problem. And on the book review, it's just a problem. Yeah, you just can't. Yeah, somebody asked how we do the test. Okay, so I'm just going to put them on Blackboard and going to ask you not to use resources while you take them. So half your grade, about half your grade is the quizzes, the other half are the weekly questions. I will be a little nervous about you if your quiz grades are always 100 and your weekly questions are terrible. I will be a little nervous about that. But I will also, by the end of the week, the first week of the unit, the unit's like 3 or 4 questions, or 3 or 4 chapters, sorry. I will give you a list of things to study for the quiz. And if you know those things, you'll do fine on the quiz. So I would expect that this week on Friday. I really don't think I'll do it tomorrow for a variety of reasons. I've got some meetings and some other stuff to do, but I'll definitely have it done by Friday. And typically you've got a weekly question due each week. I didn't make one due this week just because maybe you don't have the book yet. So two are due next week, but you can turn it in earlier. You don't have to turn it in on that Friday. Also, if you're a nervous person like the kid from Elgin, excuse me, you can turn it in early and say like, hey, don't grade this. I just want to know, or just email it to me and say like, does this look good? And I'll say like, yeah, that's good, but maybe you could add this. And you can do that with some regularity. I'd prefer you didn't do it with every question, but if you do that, just do it early enough. Give me a day or two, probably 2 days to give you some feedback. Because like if they're due on Friday the 29th and you send them at midnight on Thursday, that's not, that's not cool. Yeah, but sooner than that, I'll happily give you feedback. Also, if you look on the course documents page, there's a sample question and a sample answer that hopefully would be helpful. I hope so. That was the reason I put it there. So 2 weekly questions due next week, then one the week after, and then weekly question and quiz on the last week of the unit. I'll put the quizzes online so that they'll be available on a Wednesday. So you'll have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to take the quiz, and you just pick when you're doing it. For the quiz, I want you to do it all at once, and you only get one try on the quiz. There's so many people last semester, it's like, well, I redid the quiz. It's like, you saw all the questions. You can't redo the quiz after you see all the questions. That's not fair, not fair. So only one try on the quiz. And really, honestly, only one try on the weekly question. But if you send it to me early, I'll give you advice. Same with the book review. If you send it to me early, I'll tell you how I think you're doing. There's also sample book review online too. So, but the reason, if you had this class last semester or something like this class, I made everything due on the day of the quiz, like everything for the whole unit. And that seemed to cause lots of problems for procrastinators, especially because, it's always when your physics project is due or you've got an essay for your English class, or it's the same time something else is due. And if you've got 3 or 4 weekly questions plus the quiz, that's a lot of stress and pressure, that sort of thing. And what I noticed is even though people like the once a month deadlines much better, their grades were better when they had to turn it in every week. So I decided to go back to turn it in every week. Now, at any point, if you get a little behind, you just really need to let me know. But I just don't want you to get 4 questions behind, because that was a problem that was insurmountable for several people last semester. Yeah, there were more Fs than I typically have. Like typically I'm going to go with 1 maybe or none. And I think there were about 3 or 4 per class last semester. And it's a lot of Fs, my opinion. My boss seemed to think it was, pandemic normal. But when I had everybody turn stuff in once a week, it seemed to be better for them. So they didn't like it as much, but their grades were higher. So once a week, with the exception of the first week, and also the week the book review is due, you don't have a weekly question that week, just the book review. All right. Yeah, and I think the 1302 book review is due on the 3rd. I know that doesn't matter to you, but if you have friends in the 1302 class, they're doing it at a different time. Yeah, you probably don't though, because I think your school, that's mostly the juniors' first semester. I just put LISD dates on here just in case you're doing any of this stuff. I know it's less likely that you're doing ACT, sorry, my shoe fell off, ACT or SAT, because, you're mostly second semester seniors and you're done with that foolishness. But you may have some AP exams, so I put the AP exam schedule here. And, the good thing for us is you've got a quiz due that last week of AP exams, but it'll be available on Wednesday. You can do it anytime Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And if that turns out to be a problem for you, you can just let me know. I think, I always forget because, I didn't teach this stuff. I think the English language and composition is the junior English test. but you may be taking the comparative politics or statistics, some of these things you may be taking toward the end of our class. When you figure that out, if we need to change some due dates, that's fine. The only big problem is that my grades will be due the Tuesday after this. So I don't have a whole lot of time after, but sooner might be easier, although I know that's not usually what you want to do. So, but we'll work through as much of this as we can. And, it's possible we could extend some due dates to that Monday, but it couldn't be on more than one thing, it would have. All right, any questions so far? It's looking like, do I have the chat anywhere? Okay, all right. I'll assume you're good so far. This is about the book review, and if you taken the 1302 class, it's the same assignment, just different subjects. So, excuse me. So, you're gonna read a book about U.S. history, something that happens before Reconstruction, and then you're gonna tell me about the book. And there's a book list that's that URL. I don't know. I think if you click on it, it'll take you there. Yeah, it looks like it. I wonder if, yeah, let me try. But the book list is really big. Why did that not work? Poop. Every once in a while I say poop in front of you, sorry. Probably never hear stuff like that. But do you see the big book list? Did it go? Do you see it? Or are you still on the syllabus? I don't know. But
oh, the hyperlink turned purple.
Oh, good. That's so exciting. Purple's
Yeah.
a nice color. But when you go there, it's like
Yeah.
a six-page book list. And you really don't have to pick anything from the 6-page book list. It's enormous. It really is. And it was written long enough ago that I don't know that anything from the 21st century is on the list. And people do still write about stuff from this era. So, oh dear, I lost some stuff. Do you still see the syllabus or did I close it?
Oh, I still see it.
Okay, sorry. Let me go back to goodness. I keep hoping, at some point I will get better with technology, but I'm not there yet.
Maybe one day.
No, it's bad when you're like, I told you my dad's about 80 because he is, and he'll be 80 in April. And he makes fun of my tech skills. He has an online job.
Ooh.
Yeah, so, okay. So
Oh,
the book
pretty
list,
cool.
It is pretty cool, except that he's 80 and still needs to work. That's not as cool. So
yeah.
that reminds me to, hopefully my dad will never see this video, but that reminds me to plan a little better for the future than anyone in my family does. So, oh my goodness. Okay. All right. I got the lucrative teacher retirement package. So I'll probably won't have to work when I'm 80. I hope not. Goodness. Okay, so the big book list, which is now purple and it's long. And I always say that the emergency book choice has got to be Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, mostly because it's a great book. It's also relatively short and it's pretty action-packed, so kids like to read it. So, but you should read something that's interesting to you. There's all kinds of important historical figures. There's wars, there's events, there's political stuff. We write the Constitution. There's a ton of stuff in this time period. So hopefully you'll find something that's related to U.S. history that's interesting to you. Look at the book list if you like, or tell me like, hey, I really like this subject, and I will make a recommendation or two to you if you like. And you could also ask your librarian. I remember the librarian at Cedar Park, she likes to talk to people. So Barnes, she was a nice woman. She has a pet dog or something. She'll talk to you about the dog. But but the book list is so big, I'm not going to go through it. The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Douglass wrote, I think, in the 1840s. So when there was still slavery. And part of the reason he wrote the book was to show people what slavery was really like. So people in the South said, oh, it's not that bad. They called it a benign institution where it was really not bad for you. And so he describes lots of the things that happened to him and some of his relatives during slavery. And then people went, oh, that's actually bad. So, it's quite an important book. And there are a lot, but there's so many important books. The reason that I suggest that one always is, honestly, it's easy and fast to read. So that's your emergency book. It's not really recommended any more than any other books. It's really more the emergency book choice. Like, you get to the end, you go like, God, I've got a 68. I'm going to need a few more points to pass. I'll just go like, Frederick Douglass can help you out. So, yeah. All right. But when you write the book review, you can put it, like part 1, part 2, part 3, even though an English teacher, professor would be upset about that. For our purposes, I don't care. The whole thing needs to be about 1,500 words, which is 4 to 5 pages, double spaced, typed, of course, not handwritten. If you can tell me the word count, end of the work, or you can put it at the top. I don't care, as long as it's somewhere. Part 1 should be about a page long. Part 2 should be about 2 pages long. Part 3 should be about 2 pages long. So they should be about twice as long. 2 and 3 should be about twice as long as part 1. Part 1 is really like, tell me just generally about the book. And you can say like the first 5 chapters were about this guy's childhood, and he grew up in Pennsylvania, and he became a printer, and he really disliked Puritans. And then the second part of his life, when he was a teenager, he moved to England and worked for a printer, and made a lot of money and became kind of famous. And then for the third part of the book, they talked about the part of his life where he moved back to the United States and helped write the Constitution. I'm talking a little bit about Ben Franklin, and helped form the new government, and talked about his marriage and some other stuff and some of his writings. And the author took 15 chapters to discuss all these things. And by the time you've written all that out, you've probably gotten a page. Now, part 2, you tell me why the author wrote the book. So what's the author's thesis? Typically in a history book, the history writer will put in their foreword or introduction why they wrote the book. And they'll even say a lot of times, my thesis is, and then they tell you their thesis. Because I think a lot of times they don't write well and they're afraid you won't notice. Sometimes they're really good writers, though. There are a lot of really good writers. I think Dr. Foner, the guy who wrote your textbook, is pretty good. And he writes a lot about the Civil War. So you can find, if you like his writing style, what is the crud? The guy who wrote 1776 and John Adams. I know you're going like, Serna, we don't know that. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but I'm looking it up on my phone. I can see his face too, because I've seen him in documentaries and stuff. I didn't hang out with him. Although there are I have met some famous historians, I know. David McCullough. David McCullough is a really good writer, but there are lots of good history writers. They're not all good, but lots of them are. And there's lots of like autobiographies, like this narrative of the life. And there's lots of good biographies about all the important people that you can think of pre-Civil War. You could probably find 18 million Abraham Lincoln books or George Washington books, or there's a lot of good stuff. So, all right. So author's thesis, and if it's a biography, probably why they chose to write about that person than anybody else. So you talk about their thesis, and then you show parts of the book where they tried to prove their thesis, why George Washington was so important, or why Ben Franklin was crucial in the Constitutional Convention, or whatever it is they're trying to show. You just show examples of that, and you quote, you short quotes from the book. And what I'll look for is for you to have quotes that go throughout the book. They're not all at the beginning or all at the end, because then I'll just think, oh, they read the beginning, or oh, they read the end. Yeah. And you'll also tell me if you think the author proved their thesis. And then part 3, did you like the book? Would you recommend it to other people? How does it compare to stuff you already knew about this subject? How could the book be improved? How does it compare to what's in your textbook? Did you notice any biases from the author? Did you like reading the book? Who would you recommend it to? Who would you not recommend it to? That sort of thing. And I'm really trying to see two things. One, did you read the book? That's probably the most important thing to me. And then two, what did you get out of the book? Did you get the main stuff? Did you miss some stuff? And it is 100% completely possible for you to read a book and miss the main idea. I get that. I know that happens. And especially if you're new to history and you read something that's really intensely deep or philosophical and you go like, I don't even know what they're talking about. And it's not so much that you don't understand, it's not your field. So he may be talking about stuff, or she, that just, doesn't click. So it would be like if I read a book about calculus, or if I tried to do some calculus, I'd probably be okay for a little of it, but most of it would be, it's not my thing. So on your book review, try not to say stuff like, I didn't like the book, it was boring, or it was too long. Those are really not good academic assessments of a book, even though you may legitimately feel that way. If it was too long, tell me what you think could have been left out. If it was boring, just tell me what you didn't like about it. Like, I really think it was unnecessary to talk about Ben Franklin's childhood in so much depth. Pick the part you didn't like and describe it rather than say it was boring. I also have occasionally had people say, like, the book was not well written and it got a Pulitzer Prize. It's like, yeah, somebody disagrees with you in a pretty strong way. So if you're thinking it's not well written, you want to tell me what confused you, or what's that book that, I think the guy's last name is Ellis, and he wrote a book called Founding Brothers, which is a really good book. But Joseph Ellis, I think that's who it is. But the first chapter of that book, I don't know what got into that dude, but he used every large word he had ever heard in his life. And I'm reading that book and I'm thinking, no one will ever understand this, because 100 years ago when I taught APUSH in the district, we would make kids read a summer book and different people would pick different books. And somebody picked Founding Brothers one summer, and I'm looking at it, it's like there's no 11th grader in the world that has a vocabulary that prepares you for the first chapter of that book. Now, after that, for some reason, it was very readable, but the first chapter, that thing was a mess. And students complained about it. So when I would give them a vocabulary for the first chapter of that book, it's like, here's what he's trying to say. And then after that, for some reason, it was good. A really good book, even though I told you the first chapter is terrible, it is kind of terrible. But the book's really good. Yeah. And you could read that and you could tell me that the first chapter is, the guy's showing off his SAT prep words. Goodness. All right. But yeah, if you find something that you don't like about it, just describe it rather than say it was bad or it's boring. And then I'll give you some points for the book review. The only way I would not give you points is if you cheated. Even if I don't think you read the book, I'd probably still give you a point or two if you tell me something from the book. Yeah. But read the book, please. Read the book. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then this is how I grade your book. It's pretty simple rubric. Did you write pretty well? And then 4 points for the first section, 6 for the next two. So 20 points possible. All right. I feel like I've talked forever. Do you guys have any questions about any of that stuff? First day, going over the syllabus, not exciting, I'm just saying, but important. Important. Do you guys have any questions? Anything you want to ask? We can go until 4 o'clock. That's amazing. Should we do that? Do you want to? Yeah, I know. I don't really have anything else to say, but do you guys have questions before we go? Maybe. I just want to know which of those people in that picture is Kendall. But that's my only question. I think I'll stop recording.